Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from Uncultured, the first book of Daniella. We are deployed to Afghanistan. I am the captain in charge of all of the intelligence for a battalion of helicopters, and a woman who works for me has accused one of the pilots of sexually harassing her. And we are all trying to make sure that she's going to be okay and everything's going to be handled while we are at war. She's also accused me of not treating her properly, and most of it was just a lie. If you're a little lost in the weeds, you might have to go back a few days. Stress and grief take their toll. As Private Parker began to miss work, showing up hours late to relieve her shift partner from his already 12-hour-long night shift, my hair started falling out. When she started wearing her hair or uniform in ways that purposefully broke Army regulations and snapped at the sergeants who corrected her, I began losing so much weight that my already too big pants fell off my body. Lieutenant Colonel Halter's posture seemed more stooped by the day, pressed thin under the invisible weight I knew he carried. The lines in his face deepened, and even though I knew he was still not even 40, I saw more white hairs popping through every day. Tom showed the strain, too. His superiors were trying to warn him away from me, scared of what any association with me would do to his reputation, and if he'd get pulled into the sprawling investigation. All the lieutenants felt the tension, too, and none of us allowed ourselves to have conversations about any of it. Private Parker's story started to change. She claimed that the text messages, missing with my cell phone that had never been recovered, had been blatantly sexual, that Mr. Albright had cornered her in the offices, touching her around the hips and waist. All claims that seemed in direct contradiction to what she had told me on the first day. At some level, I understood that victims come forward in stages sometimes, when they come forward at all. Like I also knew victims sometimes lashed out against those trying to help them. It hurt, but I tried to lean into my understanding of psychology, to remind myself that it was normal, to not take any of it personally. As usual, I tried to cope by running, adding even more miles to my punishing daily routine, as Private Parker's behavior became more erratic and unaligned with Lieutenant Colonel Halter's values of candor, competence, and character that I tried to exemplify for the team. The migraines I'd suffered from occasionally began in earnest, and I'd started lactating, a crazy symptom none of the doctors could figure out. They'd checked my balance and chalked it up to wartime stress and girly hormone imbalance. Then I made my second big error in judgment. The first had been not having a witness when the soldier asked to talk to me. Colonel Johnny Maxwell appeared on my screen late one evening on a video call, explaining that he wanted to look into my eyes and ask me for my honest opinion on the case. He wanted to know who I believed in this messed up case of he said, she said. He assured me this wasn't about me, and from the seriousness on his face, I believed him. I thought he valued my opinion. As one of his senior intelligence officers, the one who briefed him on some of the biggest decisions our brigade faced. So I looked at the man we jokingly called King Henry VIII and told him the truth with a candor I hoped would make Lieutenant Colonel Halter proud. Sir, all I can say is I've never known Mr. Albright to lie. I don't question that he is the kind of guy who has likely had inappropriate relationship with soldiers, but I do think his story has remained consistent in this matter. On the other hand, I paused a minute, measuring the risk. But he'd asked my opinion, and it was my job to advise commanders, to listen to stories and reports and attempts to analyze, to give my educated opinion on which version of what I knew was more likely true. So I proceeded. I know Private Parker's lying. I'm not saying what happened to her was right in any way. I'm only saying she has lied about some of it. So I couldn't say with any certainty where the line is. I'd really like to know what makes you think she's lying, he said. I'm having trouble adjudicating this case. There was something about the way he said it that made my childhood training with the uncles kick into full gear. I formalized my demeanor. Sir, I said with respect, I don't think she's lying. I know she's lying. She lied to our commander about her conversation with me, and she's told opposing stories about what was in those texts. I saw them with my own eyes, and I specifically asked her if any missing ones might have been sexual in nature, if he ever touched her. She said no. Now she claims otherwise. I slowed down to make sure my voice sounded as measured and reasoned as possible, though I knew, both from the cult and my time in the military, this was dangerous territory. But to be clear, that only means to me that she has been less than truthful about some things surrounding this messy case. I know victims come forward in stages. I don't know if that means she's lying about Mr. Albright. All right, Daniella, thank you for your candor. He switched back to his broad grin, the one he usually wore when talking to his prized runners, or women. So how's the running coming? Training for the Shadow Boston Marathon next month, sir. I'm going to give it my best shot. Lack of sleep and proper training notwithstanding. It's the first Boston Marathon since the terrorist attack. And since I qualified last year, but can't be there, I'd like to represent here as well. Well, remember what I've told you before. You want to be good at the marathon? You need to lose some pounds. I want you to look like a bag of bones with a condom stretched over it. That's when you'll fly. Yes, sir, I said, and plastered on my obedient smile. My uniform was falling off me, but I was never skinny enough for the army. I'm down about 15 pounds already, so only a few more to go till I'm condom level skinny. Good girl, he said, and clicked off the screen. That was the last I'd heard until 3 months later, when Private Parker herself was caught in violation of General Order 1 by being found alone with a soldier of the opposite gender. Suddenly, she became the one who would be on trial. On Article 15, a punishment where a soldier is reduced in pay and rank and given additional duties and physical labor. Also, she was married, and her husband would certainly find out. I felt bad for her, knowing full well the injustices of General Order 1, of any organization getting involved in its members' sex lives. But there was nothing I could do to help her. There was, however, something she could do. And much like how I'd pointed the uncles toward other kids as a child, hoping that someone else would be the one to get the bad spotlight and the punishment, Private Parker took her shot too. The Army had recently decreed that any victim of sexual harassment or assault could request a reassignment if they felt their unit was retaliating against them, and they would be moved within 48 hours. Private Parker filed her complaint, and in the next 24 hours, the charges against her were dropped, so she could be moved at her request. And like that, she was free of the flagged charges against her. I was happy about that, at least. I hoped she'd end up in a better place. I understood her strategy, as did my superiors. And still, I trusted that nobody in my leadership team would ever believe I was creating a negative environment for women. Mr. Albright was back home, already discharged from duty. It would finally all be over, and we could focus on the war. But late one Sunday night in April, 5 months into the deployment and 3 weeks after Private Parker filed her complaint, I was ordered into a meeting with the case's investigator, who proceeded to read me my rights. Then he leveled a charge of creating and fostering an environment of sexual harassment, assault, and retaliation in the unit. He explained that Private First Class Parker had requested a transfer, reporting that Captain Mestinek was making her life a living hell because she'd filed a harassment complaint against her boyfriend's best friend. If I hadn't been so terrified, I would have laughed out loud. That explained why I had been unable to shake the anxious feeling that something was happening just outside my vision, that I was being set up to take a fall. I refused to speak without a lawyer, and the investigator, a lieutenant colonel with all kinds of rank and authority to pressure me, informed me that it was late on a Sunday, too late to contact one, as though he hadn't set the timing of this interrogation in the first place. I got the impression that he was angered that I dared to make the request. He tried to bully me into making a confession, pulling out all the techniques of rank and surprise, but I wasn't going to play that game. I told him I would speak to an attorney, and we would respond. But that didn't happen. I was released back to my room, and then everything snowballed. You can get signed copies of Uncultured here or listen to me read it to you anywhere you get your audiobooks.